Hey, my name is Rowan Smith and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare and conquer your upcoming hike, trek or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for. Let's get into today's episode. Alright, hello guys. Today I am talking all about common injury prevention mistakes that I see from hikers all the time. Now, as you know, if you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, I talk a lot around pain management and injury prevention for hikers because I know there's so many hikers out there who struggle with things like foot pain, ankle pain, shin pain, knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, and any other type of pain. And whether you've just come back from a major surgery or whether you just deal with some mild pain pretty constantly, it really is one way to ruin a lot of your adventures and just take a lot of the enjoyment out of it. And whether you're doing a day hikes or overnight hikes or multi-day hikes or massive through hikes, it really is something that, you know, hikers need to take seriously because it's not something you want to be dealing with on the trail. And on this podcast, I've talked about so many different subjects around this, and I've talked about so many different areas, how you can help certain aches and pains. And today I want to talk you through a number of common mistakes that I see really all the time in the hiking community, whether it's from conversations I have individually with hikers, whether it's things I see online, whether it's things I see in Facebook groups or whatever it may be. And these are the things that I just see over and over and over again. And you may be doing them, you may not be doing them, you may have done them in the past, but they are good to be aware of because they're simple things, but they will make a big difference to your pain prevention journey, to your injury prevention journey. And it's something every single hiker should be aware of, whether you're in pain or injury or not. Now, basically, I'm going to break this down just into 3 sections, just so it can be running relatively smoothly. We're going to talk about a few gear mistakes around injury prevention, a few training mistakes around injury prevention, and just a couple of other bits and pieces, which I do see pop up pretty regularly. So let's dive straight into the gear side of things. So mistake number 1 is I see from many hikers out there is particularly those who struggle with some type of ankle pain or some type of foot pain is really relying on high cut boots to be the savior and the answer. Now, yes, high cut boots can definitely give you some extra support if you do struggle with, constantly rolling your ankles. And, some people will argue that causes ankle weakness over time and lead to a more likelihood of injury. And, you can definitely argue that as well. But my argument here is high cut boots are fine if that makes you feel more comfortable and more confident. But the mistake I see is thinking that is the end and just saying, this is my solution. I'm going to wear these and so forth. If you are struggling with ankle pain or foot pain, you need to be doing exercises to help support the ankle, strengthen the ankle, take that issue away. So you're not entirely reliant on those high cut boots. Because in the situation, if you say a boot falls apart in the middle of a hike, say you just go out on a holiday and you don't bring your boots, say you're just going to want to go for a walk or a hike with a friend and you're just wearing your joggers, you don't want to have to be 100% reliant on boots. So yes, if you're in that situation where you're wearing high-cut boots for support, for confidence, for pain management, absolutely go for it. But please don't make the mistake of thinking that's the end. Pair it with the right exercise, pair it with the right stability work, and you need to be doing that. Now, the same thing goes for pretty much zero drop shoes as well. Now, zero drop shoes or trail runners or whatever whatever sort of variation of that you're looking at, that's often the answer. Many hikers will look if they struggle with some type of foot pain, ankle pain or something like that. And a lot of people do tend to go down that direction. Again, if that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel confident, absolutely go for it. But again, please don't rely on this as the one-stop solution. If you have issues around that area, you need to be doing exercises and training to help support it so you're not reliant on those shoes, or if something goes wrong on the trail, that you can look after yourself and the body can support itself. So please, high cut boots or zero drop shoes, see a physio, a personal trainer who specializes in this type of things, get the right advice and know that you're making steps around just the footwear. Now, the next piece of gear I want to talk about is the knee brace. So the knee brace can be a really, really fantastic tool for many hikers to use if you struggle with some type of knee pain. Some people can see some pretty instant relief and massive increase in confidence wearing it. And again, that's absolutely fine if you wear it and it makes you feel better, makes you feel more confident, and it relieves a bit of discomfort. But please, again, don't think it's the one-stop shop there. Make sure you're doing exercises around strengthening up the supporting muscles of the knees, mobilizing the muscles around the knee, and make sure you're being proactive on that and not just relying on the knee brace. Because again, if you happen to forget your knee brace one day, if it breaks, if you just go on a longer hike which you're not ready for and the brace doesn't cut it, you need to be prepared and the body needs to be in a position to look after itself. So pretty much the same moral of the story there for those 3 points. Don't use gear as a one-stop shop. Now, the final gear point I want to talk about these injury prevention mistakes is obsessing over pack weight beyond anything else. So we've talked about in this podcast a couple of times. Yes, pack weight can be significant if you can reduce that to helping with lower limb aches and pains and injuries. So every kilo you can take out of your pack is going to do some really fantastic things for your feet, for your shins, for your knees, or whatever else you're dealing with. However, again, number one, don't let that be the one-stop shop. And, you see too many people focusing on every single gram of their pack, but then not doing any training at all. And, if you've just done a little bit of strength training, you're going to improve your relative strength and decrease your relative pack weight anyway. So that's number one. And number two, don't compromise certain areas of your comfort for pack weight. So we've mentioned on this podcast before, don't limit your hydration and how much water you're carrying because of pack weight. Don't reduce how much food you're bringing and makes you leave yourself hungry and exhausted. Don't compromise your sleep systems and all these things because they all affect the presentation of pain and injury in the body. And they are risk factors: hydration, nutrition, sleep. And if you are just reducing things for the pure sake of reducing weight, that's going to get you into trouble more likely than not. So please don't make that mistake. You've got to find a balance there. Now, that's all I want to talk about with gear. I could go on and on and on, but really that's the sort of same thing coming through is don't rely on gear as a one-stop shop and make sure you are building out your injury prevention with other areas. Now, on the training side of things, a lot of hikers do get into this situation where they're like, look, I'm concerned about some type of pain. I'm concerned about some type of injury. I know training is important, so I'm going to get into it. But unfortunately, so much of advice out there is rubbish. So much advice out there is just not very helpful, and it's really not going to, be super conducive towards your goals. So a few particular common mistakes I see in this front is number one, focusing purely on walking. Yes, walking is going to be important, but doing more walking isn't going to help prevent injury. It's not going to help reduce pain. It's just not going to happen. You need to be doing other training around that. Walking can be good, but that's not going to be a solution to your pain or your injury concerns. Number two is, generally if you are looking at injury prevention, strength training is going to be fantastic and it is something every hiker should be considering. But if you're just doing random strength training exercises and you're just doing the same exercises as everyone else in the gym or just following classes, that can get you to a point, and it's better than nothing, absolutely. But just doing general strength, it's not really a great solution. And you need to be working on specific strength. So you're doing exercises that target the movements that you're doing on the trail, target the muscles that you're doing on the trail, and you're not just training like everyone else in the gym. Because you're a hiker, you do have different needs. So if you're following the same strength training program as someone who's just trying to lose weight, and who's someone's just trying to get fit or whatever it may be, you might want to consider a change there and get something a little bit more specialized towards what you need. The next mistake I often see is relying on machines for developing your muscle strength. And this is a typical thing I hear from hikers, and still in this day and age, when I hear hikers say they've been to a physio, they've had mild knee pain, and the physio said, look, go to the gym, do leg extensions and leg curls and leg presses. And in some particular situations, these things might be appropriate, particularly if you're coming back from a surgery and your physio has said specifically, this is what we need to do initially. But if that's your general advice to go on the leg extension machine or go on the leg curl machine and that is going to get you sorted, no, absolutely not. Like, it's such an old school approach. And it's fair enough if you're just going to the gym and figuring it out for yourself. That might look at the machine, look at the muscle working, say I need to strengthen that muscle up. Absolutely. But, if you're getting that from a physio, that's a bit of a worry. If that's all you're getting. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is relying on machines can be good in certain situations, and doing a little bit on machines, absolutely fine. But if that's all you're doing to develop your strength for injury prevention and for hiking, just doing stuff on machines, you need to be looking in other areas and developing the muscles in other ways. The same thing goes for doing everything in the gym as well. That's another mistake I often see, in the sense that whether it's your strength training, whether it's your walking training, whether it's your elevation training, yes, you can get a lot of this done in the gym, but you do need an element of getting outside, getting on the rough trails, getting on uneven surfaces, exposing yourself to those unexpected things of the trail. That is 100% necessary for injury prevention. And yes, there are weather concerns. Yes, there are limitations that a lot of people deal with. But if you are worried about injury prevention, make sure you are getting outside of the gym, and it's not just all of it there in there. The next one I often see is forgetting muscles, and I've talked about this quite a few times in this podcast before. If you are concerned about pain management or injury prevention, typically I'll see hikers go gung-ho and they work the quadriceps to oblivion. They work the abs, maybe a few other bits and pieces, but that's it. But they'll forget the calves, they'll forget the glutes, they'll forget the hamstrings, they'll forget, the stabilizer muscles of the shoulder and all of these bits and pieces. Really, if you're doing workouts and you're doing training and you only really feel like half the body's working or certain parts of the body's working, there's probably holes in there and it's not going to be super beneficial. No, I'm not, the wrong words. It's going to be limited in your benefits towards your injury prevention. So make sure you are not forgetting muscles. Make sure you're hitting the whole body, because every muscle really does have its part to play, or most muscles do have their part to play. And then, and again, I want to reiterate this again, because I'm probably, a few people have heard it, and I just said it before, but I want to say it again. If you're struggling with pain or injury, or if you're concerned about preventing injury, don't just focus on the walking. Make sure you consider that, because it is important walking, but it's not going to help your pain or injury prevention. Now, just a couple other points I want to talk about today before I wrap things up. Another one I commonly see is, particularly online, when someone's asking for advice around preventing injury or dealing with pain. And there's always someone will recommend some type of diet or some type of dietary change. And someone will say that you should do keto to help your pain. Someone would say you cut out refined sugars. Someone says you do intermittent fasting, or whatever it may be. And I'll tell you right now, there are some small benefits certain types of eating can have towards, injury management, injury prevention, but it is not a priority. And doing a broad change of just following this eating approach, if you're not directed from a dietitian who actually knows what they're talking about, it's a waste of time. You may get other benefits and you may enjoy it, and it may be something you want to do, but specifically for injury prevention, specifically for pain management, it's not going to make any real difference. And you'll always hear stories of someone saying, look, I cut out sugar, then 4 weeks later, all of a sudden my knee was better. And it's not the cause. I'm sorry to say, it's not the cause. They may be, might be good for them, and it may be good for their lifestyle in their situation. But there's probably other things they've done around that as well, which has helped. Maybe they've done a little bit extra training. Maybe they've dropped some weight. Maybe they've done this, been sleeping better, maybe whatever. And that has helped the pain management. But 9 times out of 10, your dietary changes aren't going to be a priority in regards to your injury prevention and pain management. The only thing that really is a priority is if you are aware that you are carrying a few extra kilos and you are aware that you are a bit overweight and you are struggling with lower limb issues. Losing a bit of weight is probably usually going to be beneficial, because as we said before with the pack stuff, every kilo that you can drop is going to play pretty significant differences to your feet, to your shins, to your knees, and that can be an area. But just following something that's specifically saying this diet is going to fix your issue, it's probably not. It is a mistake, and it's not really going to do what you want in regards to that. And then the final thing I want to talk about as well when it comes to injury prevention or pain management is really falling into the trap of relying on manual therapy. So when I say manual therapy is basically when you go see a health professional, so a physio, a physical therapist, a chiropractor, an osteo or something like that, and they do something hands-on to help relieve the body. So there might be sports massage, it might be dry needling, it might be acupuncture, it might be cracking your back, it may be ultrasound or whatever it may be. these things, they can be beneficial for a little bit of pain management initially, and they can be beneficial in a very particular way of just helping the body calm down and relax and helping you feel good. But as a long-term strategy, it's not a great thing to rely on. These things don't change the body. They help it calm down, they help it get out of pain in a short-term environment, but they don't change the body. And if you've been doing these same things for months at a time, or if you use that every time you have a flare up of discomfort, you go get some dry needling or whatever it may be, I would say you probably want to be looking at a different approach. This stuff can be beneficial in certain situations, but it's not an answer. And if that's all you're doing, you're never going to change, and you're just going to stuck in that cycle. And when I hear stories of people going to the same chiro for, every couple of weeks, for 12 months, for 2 years, for 5 years, just to maintain things, that's a big red flag there. So relying on manual therapy of any type, it can be beneficial in certain situations. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying don't be reliant on it, and make sure you're doing other things around it to help with the issue and help build what you need to build. And we'll leave it at there. So hopefully, if you have been listening to all of this, some of these may sound familiar to you, and a lot of us have probably gone through similar things, and a lot of us, and myself included, I've done quite a few of these on the list in my earlier days as a trainer before I knew so much. And it is something that a lot of us do. So if you are going through it, don't stress, but just use this podcast and use these ideas to consider something else. There's always room for change. And if you are making these mistakes, even the slightest shift towards what we're talking about today, towards the actually being proactive, towards the training or shifting things in the right direction, that's always going to be beneficial. So I highly recommend, if you recognize yourself doing any of these, have a think. How can you change that? How can you shift it in the right direction? And how can you start being a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more proactive? And how can you best help yourself on the trail? Now, if you have caught yourself in any of these mistakes and you were wanting some help of where can you put your focus to help build this out, to help supplement these things and to help shift these mistakes around, I would absolutely love for you to come and join the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. Now, inside that group, I'm always happy to expand on the topics that we talk about on this podcast. I'm always happy to answer any questions you may have and give you a little bit extra, personal direction around where you want to go and what you may need. So if you want to find that group, it's the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. I'll leave a link in the show notes below and you can check it out there. So thank you so much for listening today, guys. I do hope you got a bit out of it, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye.